Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Our only guest today is no stranger to us. He's somebody we love very much. He is a preeminent researcher, one of the world's leading researchers. He's been doing it for decades in the field of the occult, in religious philosophy, theology, you name it. He's written about it. He's lectured on it, as I said, for over 5 decades. We love him. You can find him at jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's his website. And he's brought to us today by the great people at freestylehomes.com. That's www.freestylehomes.com. Let's welcome back to the program from California, somewhere near the desert, our great friend Jordan Maxwell. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Oh, just fine. Thank you for having me back on. Richie, I always love being on the show. It's always a fascinating time when we can talk about all kinds of strange things that I have so many things I like to talk about that most people normally don't even hear about. So I got to try and watch what I say because I got so much to say. But there's a lot of information out there that's been out there for a long time. But most people, unless you tell them exactly where to go and show them, they don't know where to look. Well, I've been doing it, for some 60 years, 55 years now, researching and studying all kinds of phenomena. So I've gotten to where I've got a sixth sense about where things are and who has the good stuff and who doesn't, and how to get to it. So a lot of stuff that I feel that the world of mankind needs to know about, and so far has not been told. The kind of important knowledge which leading us to our destiny. And I am totally convinced that the most important story on the earth today is how the whole entire human race has been ripped off, has been lied to, deceived, while behind the scenes, what we're given, what people on the earth are given for a life each day is just to go to work, try and earn a living, pay your bills and stay alive and find some entertainment, something. But in actual fact, there is a world movement. There is a world organized criminal movement. It's called organized crime for a reason, because it's highly organized and it is extremely criminal. And it's leading the entire world of mankind. And I can see it because I've been looking at it for so long. Most people don't see it because they don't know what I'm talking about. But if for instance, if you're a detective and you've been working with the police department in a big city for, say, 35 years, you know what I'm talking about when I say crime is everywhere. Yeah, if you're a detective, that's what you do for a living, is you're investigating all kinds of criminality and drug running and robbery and all kinds of stuff. And you get to where you're used to it. You get a sixth sense about what's going on when you talk to a suspect, talk to a witness. You got to, because of the background, because of your experiences for many years in crime prevention, you get to where you pretty well have got an idea about everything that comes your way. Why? Because of the experience. Well, I've been doing the kind of work I've been researching and studying, well, for almost 60 years now, into the world of the occult, the hidden, the lies, the treacheries, and just the dark underbelly of world civilization. And I can tell you that the situation is far, far more difficult and far more bigger and more frightening than you even imagine. There are, how would I say this? There is well known among certain criminal and international criminal law enforcement agencies know about the extent of organized crime. International police forces understand how big international organized criminality is. They know, we don't, but they know. They know how deep it goes into government and religion and human institutions, and they know about the worldwide epidemic of murder, violence, drug addiction, alcohol, and just all kinds of criminality that's going on a worldwide scale. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's an even bigger crime on the worldwide scale that people do not even suspect, and that is the connections between nations. All over the world, there are secret societies, fraternal orders, all kinds of political and social political movements which work together behind the scenes. On the surface, they may look like they're totally different from one country to another. But then when you do some really deep research into these different organizations around the earth, from Russia to China to Africa to Europe, there are large organizations of criminals that are working for the overthrow of Western and human civilization.
Would we call them, Jordan, would we call them non-governmental organizations, NGOs, yeah. Right?
Yeah, but also governmental organizations which are equally corrupt and are connected, well connected to these non-governmental agencies. So you've got both playing. You've got corrupt governmental agencies that are operating directly with criminal organizations around the world. It's just business. And most people don't know and don't realize to what extent I'm talking about. But I've seen too much that tells me that the entire human family on the earth is not prepared to understand how big the world of criminality really is. It's in government, religion, banking, military. It's everywhere.
And it's interconnected.
Yeah. And they're all actually, in fact, connected. I've seen the what would I call them, maps and documents showing the connections between political movements, underworld organizations, secret societies, criminal organizations, banking institutions doing business with cartels in Central and South America. Our modern day banking institutions in America are meeting secretly with Medellin cartel and the Cali cartels and the different cartels in Mexico, Central and South America, laundering the money for them and keeping a lot for themselves. And so, and then of course, I brought out before that oil companies are financing Christian groups. When you're sending out missionaries, the word missionary is what I'm looking for. Oil companies, large oil corporations are financing churches and Christian organizations to send out missionaries to the different countries of the world.
Why would they do that? What's in it for them to be sending missionaries around the world?
Because the missionaries go in and they themselves are presenting themselves as harmless, decent people wanting to help the population, help feed them and help clothe them and educate them and give them a reason to live and a religion, a religious belief. And so the people of these poorer countries, are happy to have the missionaries who are there to help feed them and take care of them, and so they appreciate that, and so they become very close friends with the missionaries and with the churches, and the churches will have, they'll send money and funds to pay for clothing or whatever, and so the poor people in the countries realize that these are nice people trying to help you. And so eventually there's a trust builds up between the churches, the missionaries, and the people of foreign lands. That's what the oil company wants. That's what they want. They want the people to trust the church, the missionaries, etc., because they're out there helping you and they want to help feed you and clothe you. And so the people become very laxed because they're not prepared, they're not sophisticated enough to understand the bigger picture. And eventually, the church and the missionaries and the church they represent become very powerful in their country. They become very connected to the government, and eventually, then now Western corporations can now begin to quietly come in to help the poor with their agricultural needs and help them with mining, etc. And ultimately, at the end of the day, countries, poorer countries, which were, had nothing to do with international commerce and big business, are now the homes of very big corporations have moved in, taking the oil and the raw materials, etc. In Africa as a classic example.
Yeah,
And before you know it,
Central and
yeah,
South America with the water, companies like Bechtel and Nestle. This is
that's
great
it.
stuff, Jordan. And does that explain why those religious leaders, particularly the Catholic ones,
Yep,
why they've gotten away with some of the worst crimes against children in
yep,
history? Because they have done, haven't they?
yep. Well, I would say also that it's a big, big story. And I have all the documents, all the pictures. I've been looking at this for many years and collecting the materials, but I've never talked about it in public. But it's an enormous story that you would not believe if you saw how much I already have on this subject of religion and the real foundations of, especially, am I interested in Western civilization, Christianity, Judaism, and of course, Islam. But all three major religions are nowhere near what they pretend to be, what they present themselves to be. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are profoundly awesome uh, presence on this earth that are doing things daily in your face that you do not see, you don't know anything about. They are the monies behind corporations. They are the powers behind white slavery, child sacrifice, all kinds of dirty, incredible criminality the church is involved in
And you
and
know
has
what?
always been
Do
involved
you know
in.
what? I got to back you up here because speaking about this on a previous show, not one that you were involved in, Jordan, but I had a good look into where the Vatican has its money. And where the Vatican has its money, it's absolutely sickening. They have their money in arms, they have their money in tobacco, they have their money in any manner of shady schemes, finance schemes around the world, things that are totally unbecoming of an organisation that's
Yeah.
supposed to be about peace and love and about doing the right thing so that in the hereafter you'll be rewarded. I mean, if only people could see that, you know. It's
I
right
know.
there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the Vatican has big investments in condom
Yeah,
corporations
yeah.
and sex films and Vatican connections and all kinds of, and of course, the connection to mafia and the Italian, Sicilian mafia, and generally speaking, the whole criminal syndicates around the world. Vatican is heavily involved in, heavily. They are the Vatican has always been one of the most important intelligence centers because they got priests and nuns in every country of the world, and they are not there to lead you in your spiritual development. They're there to make reports to Rome, for all roads lead to Rome. So that Rome is the center for power. It always has been, For about 2,300 years, Rome has ruled Europe, and Europe has ruled the world. And so, the Caesars were famous for considering themselves to be the emperors of the world. And at that time, they were closest to God as you're going to get. Well, the emperor is still here. It's called Vatican. It's still Rome. It's still the Holy Father, the Pontifex Maximus. And the very word Pontifex Maximus, which is a term for the Pope, is a Latin word, pontiff, maximus. Maximum, of course, maximum is the most. Pontiff is a bridge builder, someone who builds bridges. And so he is the greatest bridge builder in the world as the Pontifex Maximus. Why? Because the Pope has control over and influences and dominates the whole world, but especially Christendom and Judaism, and especially. And so they're building, the Pope is actually in the Vatican itself, has been building bridges for hundreds and hundreds of years, if not 1,000 years, of building bridges, taking over one country, moving into another country, then eventually bringing in another country, another group of people. Until today, the Vatican is well respected in political powers around the world. Why? Because they're in every country. And they're building bridges to people. The Romans are.
Do you know what's interesting about that, Jordan?
Bridges.
Do you know what's amazing about that? Just before coming on air, I told you about a very nasty bit of so-called journalism by the BBC yesterday when they did a global warming debate, a climate change debate, and it wasn't fair. Do you know what was amazing? During the debate, the presenter of the debate, a Scottish man called Nicky Campbell, inexplicably challenged the man who believes climate change is just a hoax. And he said to Piers Corbyn, he said, everybody believes in it. All the scientists in the world believe it. The Pope believes in it, he said. I thought it was extraordinary, Jordan. There was no need to mention the Pope whatsoever. It had no context in the debate, but he threw it in there. All these scientists say it's real, and the Pope says it's real. And he just threw that in there. And I thought it was kind of strange at the time, but maybe it's not so strange. You see, I thought that the Catholic Church's influence was on the wane a bit, because church attendances in some of the big Catholic countries like Spain and the Republic of Ireland, obviously, and others, people are kind of turning away from it, Jordan. But you're saying that doesn't really matter. Even if people are not going on Sunday, it doesn't matter.
Nope, does not matter at all.
Wow,
It's totally irrelevant. And the reason why is because a long time ago, many years ago, as a matter of fact, a classic example is what in Godfather 1, the first Godfather movie, when Michael, as a young guy, is sitting at the party at the beginning of the movie. He's sitting at the birthday party, or the marriage, I guess it's a marriage party, and he's sitting and talking to his girlfriend, and she knows that he's in the mob. She knows the family are mafia, but he says to her in the movie, Kate, look, in 10 years, the family is going to be completely legit. It's either 5 or 10 years. We're going to be completely legitimate. No more criminality, no more crime and all that stuff. That's the old days. Just hang on. In about 5 to 10 years, we're going to be completely legit. What does he mean by that? Meaning that all the money we're making from drug sales and murder for hire and prostitution and gambling and all of that money that's just pouring in to the underworld is being invested in Sears and General Motors and General Electric and the Wall Street banking, et cetera, all kinds of corporations, companies, businesses that they're investing heavily into. Well, you keep doing that for, say, 50 years, investing heavily in big corporations, and my God, one day you're going to have an empire of investments because those investments are paying off. Yeah, you put hundreds of millions into corporations, but they're making you billions. And so eventually, yeah, you will be completely legitimate, which is translated to mean the world of corporations and businesses now organized crime. But now it's moved up. It's no longer shoot 'em ups and drive-by shootings and all of that crazy stuff. No. Now we call it Wall Street. Now we have respectable people wearing respectable clothing and speaking very intelligently and having lawyers and having their corporations, but it's all mob. That's the bottom line. It's all old money that's been invested in the big corporations many, many years ago when you were a child, and today they run Wall Street. They run big business, and Wall Street, of course, influences, if not runs, big government. So the bottom line is very simple. The whole world is a criminal organization. It's just business. Nothing to get excited about, nothing to be alarmed about. It's just business.
And you know what it's resulted in as well? 60 individuals now control over half the world's wealth. And that was announced by Oxfam, which you might or might not know, Jordan, is one of Britain's most well-known charities for the poor. 60 people. Now, you said beforehand we'd take a few tweets. The interest in this is absolutely massive. People can tweet at Richie Allen Show. The great Jordan Maxwell, my old pal, he's been speaking to me on radio programs since 2008. Amazingly enough, since I finally started to see what was, or to have a glimpse of what's really going on, it must be said. Jordan, Base Ninja on Twitter, the amazing names on Twitter, eh? Base Ninja says, Jordan, is the Vatican's investment in astronomy, for example, they invested in a telescope called Lucifer, apparently, I didn't know that. Does that imply that they're looking for someone or something?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What are they looking for?
That is precisely the point. The Vatican is heavily involved in astronomy, not because they want to teach the children about the stars and about the universe. No, they have their own reasons. Anytime the Vatican, which is organized crime, at its top of the list of organized crime, they know what they're doing. They're international business, political power on the earth, and they know what they're doing. And this is why they are so well protected and so well, what am I trying to say? So experienced are they in organized crime, big money, mafia, etc. That's why all governmental heads, I don't care who you are, I don't care how important you think you are, from the royalty of all countries, always end up going before the Pope and bowing down and kissing his ring. Why? Very simple. You know, you need to show respect for the powers that be. And you're talking to him when you're looking at the Pope. You're talking to one of the most important, powerful men on the planet. He can afford to be a kindly old man, kindly old guy who's supposedly looking out for your spiritual health. Actually, in point of fact, no, he is the corporate head of one of the largest institutions and corporations on the earth. It's in every country of the world, and it doesn't have anything to do with God. It has to do with politics, money, political power, and social movements around the world. So, when you wake up and find out what the world religion is really all about, it's frightening, because it has nothing to do with spirituality.
It's terrifying, and you know from speaking to me for many years that I grew up as a Catholic boy in the Republic of Ireland, and we went to church every weekend. The priests would come into our classrooms to give religious lessons during the week. Some of those priests now, to be fair to them, they came across as genial, enough guys. I think maybe at the ground level, the foot soldier levels, maybe some of them are really good guys. But I hear what you're saying. It's a minute to the top of the hour. Go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's Jordan's website, by the way. Jordan, I propose we take a very, very short break. When we come back, there are loads of questions. There is a brilliant, brilliant question about Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia and the bizarre deaths that he had, allegedly surrounded by hunters of a fraternity called the International Order of St. Hubertus, an Austrian society that dates back to the 1600s. And there's a couple of questions on that, a couple of points really people wanted to put to you. So Jordan's going to stay with us. He's on for the show. It's great. This programme is brought to you by freestylehomes.com. Thanks to Andy and all the staff there. Big supporters of the independent media. And Andy absolutely loves the work of Jordan Maxwell. So thanks for that, Andy. Very quick break, as I said. Back with more from Jordan. Keep the tweets coming in.
Do you want to release the full potential of your soul consciousness and find out how to experience that power in all areas of your life now? Go to livingasyoursoul.com for free guidance with in-depth how-to articles, free healing meditations of creation recordings, free soul solutions, and much, much more. livingasyoursoul.com, making the profound practical.
NeonNettle.com, a new voice in alternative media. For unfiltered news at your fingertips, visit NeonNettle.com, the UK's #1 alternative news site. In association with The Richie Allen Show. NeonNettle.com.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
It is a minute past the hour. Ordinarily, we would be in news. We would have news from London, but we're not taking the news because it's the same old news. We're going to stay with our great friend Jordan Maxwell. The programme is live on DavidIke.com. We're live on Fab Radio 2 at fabradiointernational.com in Manchester. We're live on alternatecurrentradio.com as well as my website, the TuneIn app as well. We're on the TuneIn app. This is verifiably, we don't say this to brag, we say this because it is your programme, not to brag. This is the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. Verifiably. Thanks for listening to it. 2 minutes past the hour. The great Jordan Maxwell is going to stay with us for another 45-50 minutes. It's going to fly by. Do, by the way, check out freestylehomes.com. Andy and the gang there, great supporters of the alternative media. They're bringing Jordan Maxwell to the Richie Allen Show. That's a lovely thing. Jordan had nothing to do with that. He didn't want anything. But back in late summer, early autumn, early fall, as Jordan would say, last year, Andy said, I'd like to sponsor Jordan coming on the programme, which is brilliant. Jordan has had his difficulties. As we know, he's been wrapped up in a legal battle for his website and his books and his material and all of that, which has caused great angst and great annoyance to him. The website at the moment is jordanmaxwellshow.com, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Right, Jordan, my friend, here's a brilliant point. This is coming in from a number of listeners. They say, Richie, what a bizarre death that the Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia had way back, well, I say way back, it's only last month, in early February. He died at a West Texas ranch. And while he was at that ranch, there were high-ranking members of an exclusive fraternity for hunters called the International Order of St. Hubertus, an Austrian society that dates back to the 1600s. Now, after he died, the names of the other 35 guests at the remote resort, along with details about Scalia's connection to the hunters, haven't been released and remain unknown. What do you make of that? Have you spent much time looking at that, Jordan? These I know you wrote the books on secret societies. You're the man. But what about this Austrian Society of Hunters, the International Order of St. Hubertus, and the bizarre death of Justice Antonin Scalia, Big Cheese, Chief Justice, Supreme Court Justice? What do you reckon?
Well, I'm not familiar with that particular group, but I am familiar with any fraternal order or society coming out of Austria or Washington, D.C. or Rome especially Austria, because of the because of the Nazi influence, and of course because of the Catholic Vatican connection directly with Nazism throughout the world, and that has been that's been explained to ad nauseum. I mean, that's nobody has to even concern themselves with researching that. It's everywhere. All you got to do is look for it. The Vatican has always been connected to what we call Nazism, but it's also connected to the whole Prussian, Russia, Eastern European operation of politics, religion, finances for almost 1900 years anyway. And so because even before it was founded in 325 AD, the Vatican was officially founded in 325, but even before that, those powers that be that were forming what was to become the Catholic Church were already working in Europe to start with, and eventually became successful in 325 when the emperor brought everybody together and made them into one big corporation, one big religion. And so it's an incredible story of how big and old and powerful the dark side is. The dark evil side of mankind is far, far more bigger, far more frightening, and well financed and highly educated to know how to do these things slowly but surely. These powers that have been around for hundreds of years, if not thousands in some cases, but hundreds of years in the making, especially in Europe. It all goes back to secret connections, secret societies that the Vatican has made with political parties, social groups. And so that doesn't surprise me. Now, in particular, with this particular case, I'm not familiar with enough to say anything about it.
Fair enough.
But suffice it to say that he was Catholic, Vatican connections, and then he's with Austrian hunters. Well, that's a nice way,
Yeah.
a nice way of putting it. Yeah, they may be hunters, all right. What do hunters do? They kill.
They kill animals. Do you know what, George? Do you know what's even more amazing about this? When you do a little examination of this particular group, I nearly said cult there, but we'll say group for the time being.
Yeah.
That it's a male-only society, no surprises. They wear dark green robes emblazoned with a large cross, and their motto is Deum diligite animalia diligentes, which means honouring God by honouring his creatures. But you're not honouring the creatures if you're shooting them or killing them or butchering them. They hold titles like Grand Master, Prior and Knight Grand Officer. Their name is in honour of Hubert, the patron saint of hunters and fishermen, and they were present when Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia had the most bizarre death. Amazing. Just, amazing. Yeah.
It truly is amazing, all the connections. Once you start looking into it and start taking time to look at all the names and where those names show up and who they're with, and who was seen with who and who have business connections with who, and then you find out the Vatican is, like you said, Vatican is actually financing corporations. England has a very big connection to the Vatican behind the scenes that nobody is supposed to know about, and so British law and the what is called the canon law of Rome, and once you get into that whole mess of the connections with the city in London, the banking center for the Western world, and how it connects directly back to the Vatican and Vatican canon law. It's like I said, it's a very, very old and ancient and big and frightening picture of how much power these organizations, secret societies, especially Propaganda Due in Italy, which we refer to it as P2, Lodge of P2, which was a extreme right-wing fascist terror squad that was causing all kinds of terrorism around the world, financing terrorism, murder, violence, blowing up places, frightening the people, and the Catholic, and right there within the Catholic Church, the financing is coming from. So there's a big story here about religion, politics, banking, and the world government. It's very, very sad, and it's very, very big. And I think the only hope, if there's anything at all, if there's any hope at all, I have always said, and I still believe it, is education, knowledge. And I think that's the biggest problem the human race today has. And my God, we've got plenty of problems.
We certainly
But I
have,
think
yeah.
the largest, but the biggest one is just plain old ignorance, ill-informed, lazy mental habits, lazy ignorance, ill-informed, unread. As long as it doesn't bother you, as long as you're not out in the street sleeping under a bridge, and you're not starving, then how important could it be? It's not that important. But when it starts to affect you and your family, then all of a sudden people are now interested in what's going on here. Why is this happening? No, it's been happening for thousands of years. Rome has been around for a long time. And again, that's a very important point. I've said before, and I'll say it again. For 1,600 years, the Vatican has dominated Europe, period. And for 1,600 years, Europe has dominated the planet. So that's why we say all roads lead to Rome. This is why I've always felt, and I totally believe, that when we talk about the evil, international evil, sure, there are Jews involved in international evil, but so are there Italians and blacks and old white men, and all kinds of people are involved in criminality. It's a part of the human nature to be criminal, and that's why we're supposed to be having governments to protect the people from the criminals.
How important is Zionism, Jordan?
Say it again?
How important is Zionism and the pursuit of the Zionist philosophy? How important is that alongside the
I'm working on something I've been working on for quite a few years, putting together a 2-hour, it may end up being 3 hours, video presentation on Zionism that nobody, and I do mean no one, has connected publicly. There may be researchers out there and people in government that know, but nothing public has ever been said about the kind of information I've been developing. And it's an incredible story when has nothing to do with the normal, everyday political criminality and crap that's going on in the Middle East. No. This is something totally different. Something totally different about Zionism that nobody seems to know anything about, period. What it actually is, where it actually came from, has nothing to do with being Jewish whatsoever, has nothing to do with anything Semitic at all, period. It goes back to a long time ago into the ancient world, the symbols, the terms, the words, and what it all comes from. And it ties directly into the really dark belly of the underworld, but in such a way that you've never heard before. I would guarantee you and your audience have never heard the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And the only reason I realize it's going to be very difficult for me to make any headway with this subject unless I put out a 2-hour documentary where people can actually see it for themselves, for the first time, actually see the documents, the words, the terms, the etymology of the words that are being used, and what Zionism really is. And it has got nothing to do with being Jewish at all. Period.
We look forward to that. I'm going to read a few tweets now. There's so many of them coming in. Randomly, by the way, dear listener, randomly, so don't get upset if your tweet isn't read out. We've probably had 200 tweets in the last half an hour alone. That's not an exaggeration. Gary was on to say all these order names are references to vibrational deities that hold a place within an occult hierarchy. That's a great comment, Gary. Colm is listening in Dublin. How you doing, Colm? Good guy is Colm. The Pope's banker was found hanging from London Bridge. Another one had his throat slit in the Vatican. Look up Malachi Martin, another dead priest, says Colm. Great stuff, Colm. Absolutely right. Luke is in Adelaide listening, so it's in the early hours of the morning in Adelaide there. Luke, how are you? Thanks for listening to the programme. He asks Jordan, why is the Catholic Church so obsessed with paedophilia and why are they appearing to outwardly stamp it out now? Now, Jordan has gotten into this before, and if he wants to, he can get into it again. It is his show, this show. But we have talked about the prepubescent energy of children and what's going on there. We've talked about archon energies and the jinn. We've gotten into all that before. But Jordan might want to make a comment on it. Wayne was on to say, I think a psychopath will hurt anything. What the hell? He doesn't feel, says Wayne. Natalie was on to say, how you doing, Natalie? Since the focus is on the Vatican, can you please ask Jordan about the last Pope theory and the prophecy about the fall of the Church? There are prophecies, Jordan, about the fall of the Church and the last Pope. What do you read into all of that?
Well, I know about the prophecy of that Irish priest. I don't know, a couple 100 years ago, I guess it was, or more, maybe 300 years ago, that gave the prophecy about all the popes that had come before him, and all the popes that were going to come, and when the last one. And so I'm aware of all of that. I'm aware of Mother Shipton's prophecies about the Church. I've heard all the stories, but I'm not really sure, because I don't think anybody in control right now on the earth, no humans in control at the top, have any control at all. I think something else is going on far worse than that. I think that we have otherworld intervention, so to speak. And so it's hard to know what they're going to do, what these extraterrestrial spirit entities who are guiding the destiny of the human race. It's kind of hard to know what their plan is, if they even have one. But I know that the Church itself is going to continue. It's not going to collapse. It's not going to go away. But what it will do, possibly because of the pressure being put on it, it will evolve or mutate, I think is a better word. It will mutate into something a little different. But it's going to take time for it to mutate and evolve into a different kind of an institution. But it will always still be the same people, the same power structure. But it will be called different things, and it will have a different face to it. But it's the same people, same criminals running it. And so who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. But if you're looking for the age of Aquarius coming, that's not going to be for, in my opinion, not going to be for another 300 or 400 years. But the Church itself will begin to evolve and mutate into an Aquarian organization.
Well, can I just stop you there? Because that's interesting now. Because now that this is all, much of this is new to me. I obviously speak a lot to David, and David has introduced me to some of these themes in the past and in his own books. And of course, David's a great admirer and follower of your work, and you get quoted so many times in David's books. I want to ask you about the Aquarian age and the age of Aquarius in a second, but I want to just get to a couple of things here quickly first. First of all, it was St. Malachy that you were thinking of.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. You're spot on there. A couple of people, my mate Jean Ann and a couple of other people just said St. Malachy. Sean says, is Rome then effectively the centre of Satanism? Brilliant question. And following that, Sarah Willis, who's in Australia as well, listening to us live. Richie, Jordan's in excellent form, excellent info from Jordan tonight. Ask him about our royal family and how they fit into the equation. So, is Rome effectively then the satanic centre of the world?
It's not the beginning of the demonic center of the world, but it has taken over that position, in my opinion, by absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind about it for today. It may not have been the center for demonic presence on the earth, 1,000 years ago. It was beginning to take on that. The Roman Empire wasn't even that. I think it goes, that center for demonism and devil worship on the earth, the whole demonic depravity that we have to deal with as humans, probably started many, many, many thousands of years ago, and probably in the Middle East somewhere. And so, because, there's a lot of knowledge about Babylon and Assyria and the Babylonians, the Akkadians, especially the Phoenicians, Canaanites, were heavily involved in commerce, human sacrifice, all kinds of religious orders. But today, for the modern day world, there's no doubt in my mind that the Vatican holds they hold the key to, the idea of Peter having two keys. The two keys of Peter, one to the earthly powers and one to the spiritual heavenly powers. The two keys of the kingdom, the earthly kingdom and the heavenly kingdom. What the earthly and heavenly kingdom is not what you think. It hasn't got anything to do with God. It has to do with the spirit world. Well, you better go back and do some homework on what the spirit world, that spiritual kingdom, really is. And when you get into spirituality, now you're talking about demonism, devil worship. You're talking about spirits, poltergeists, angels, fallen angels. I mean, that's a whole world of darkness that's going on spiritually all around us. And I think that's one of the main ways in which the human race is being raped and plundered and murdered around the world, is because there is, in point of fact, theological, spiritual reasons in the dark world for murder, for bloodshed, for child sacrifice, for sexual rituals. That's all has to do with the spirit world, demonic spirit presence in the world today in religion and government. And so looking at this from that point of view, that it's a worldwide spiritual demonic presence on the earth that requires bloodshed, sexual sacrifices, secret societies, black robes, secret orders. I mean, it's
and you got into this in the last episode. We got into blood sacrifice for the gods,
yep,
which was outstanding, by the way. And if you missed that, thousands and thousands of people have already listened to that on YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel. Jordan's last appearance on the program about 5-6 weeks ago. Outstanding stuff. It really is. Massive amount of tweets coming in. Again, don't hold it against me if I don't read your tweet. Go to Twitter, put Richie Allen Show, all one word, Richie Allen Show, into Twitter. Press enter, see what everybody else is tweeting. It's 23 minutes past the hour. You're with the Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com. David and my mutual friend, the great Jordan Maxwell, is on the line to us live from California. He's with us for another 25 to 30 minutes max. There's so much to get through. It's great that he does it, and the programme is brought to us by freestylehomes.com. We're live on alternatecurrentradio.com, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester at fabradiointernational.com, and davidike.com. The royal family, Jordan. This royal family
God.
and the other royal families.
Yeah,
wow.
Look, when we talk about royalty, there's nothing in the world that turns my stomach quicker than the concept of royalty. It's frightening. It's absolutely fear-inspiring that you can have. I mean, I understand. It makes sense to me when Al Capone during the 30s ruled Chicago with an iron hand as the top mobster in the city, and he would kill anybody who got in his way. And it was making hundreds of millions of dollars a month off of prostitution and drug running and alcohol and God knows what else he was doing. I understand that. He's not royalty, but he's treated like royalty. Why? Because he runs the place, and the police department, the sheriff, the federal government, and the city and the state governors, they all know who the boss is. And if you don't think so, you mess with him. And I don't care if you're a governor, you're a dead man walking. And so he's treated like royalty. Well, that's what royalty is. It's criminal. Anytime you can get a human being to, first of all, let me go back and say something I think is overwhelming and obvious about royalty. First of all, nobody on this earth likes and enjoys being treated like a slave. Nobody likes to be in the company of some wealthy snob who wouldn't give you the time of day, looks down on you, and wouldn't even talk to you if you were starving. He wouldn't even talk to you. It has nothing to do with you because you're below him. Nobody likes to be around a person that's a snob and wealthy and looks down upon you and the poor. Nobody likes that kind of an attitude, except if it's the Prince Charles, or if it's the Queen Mum. Now that's different. If it's the Pope, well, that's different. If it's some kind of a royalty, oh well, that's different. That's okay. We don't mind crawling on our knees and being spit on and have them flip their cigarette ashes on us and treat us like we're trash under their feet. But that's different because they're royalty. My feeling is it's a criminal idea to start with, royalty. In what way is any human being on the earth, period, royal to anybody else? Where do you come up with the concept, the very idea of being royal? You come up with that concept going all the way back into the ancient Babylonian, Sumerian. The ancient world had kings and royalty. Read the book, read some history about those days and those times, thousands of years ago, when the first royalty were being established in Babylon and Assyria and Phoenicia, Canaan, and Greece and Rome. Read what royalty meant. They were the criminals. They were the murderers that would kill anybody that would stand in their way. They were murderous, vicious criminals. And they decided to be king. And if you don't like it, they'll kill you. And so they had their own gang, and their gang moved in with the king. And it became a gang wars. And then another king in another country, he wanted what that king had, so he's got a bigger gang. So the bottom line is the whole idea of royalty is absolutely ludicrous. Who is royal?
Who is royal? Why is blood and bloodlines so important to these people, Jordan?
Yeah, now that's a whole different story. Now you're getting into some really dark stuff. And I am totally convinced that the bloodlines, the kings and royalty, all of these filthy degenerates and intermarried, they're all mentally insane because they marry each other. And so they're inbreds, which we have a lot of problem with that in the States with the Mormons, because there's so much of they're inbred there. They have become famous, and the Mormon church is famous in America for inbreds, people who are mentally challenged. Their children are mentally backwards because they marry within their own cult. And so did the royalty. They keep marrying themselves and marrying their cousins and their brothers and their sisters, and today they're mentally deranged, and they don't have any connections with the human race. They don't think like humans, and so therefore it's no big deal to them to see thousands of people on the streets. I think about the power, the political power, and the monetary banking power of England, and the city of London, and how much money they control, and yet, at the same time, all over London are people sleeping under the bridges, starving, kids out there starving, sitting wrapped up in a blanket with a can, trying to earn a few dollars. It's a massive, massive criminality.
And you wonder how anybody could stand and seize that. The second in line to the throne, well, he's not. In fact, he'd be the third in line to the throne now, or the fourth, Prince Harry, William's brother, William, who's the next after Charles. He's in Nepal looking at people coming to terms with building their lives after that terrible earthquake there. And it's not because I'm a bad guy, Jordan, and I just want to take the guy down. But looking at the video footage of a meeting with the Nepalese and the poor, it's quite obvious, Jordan, that he couldn't give a shite, you know. I mean, it's quite obvious that he couldn't. I mean, you or I or anybody else would be out there and you'd be genuinely touched by the difficulties faced by these people. He's there and it's obvious that he couldn't give a damn.
Yep.
No empathy.
Couldn't care less. And that's the same thing in America. I mean, in Las Vegas, one of the most wealthiest cities in America, Las Vegas, where billions of dollars are coming in to Nevada and to Nevada state, and hundreds of millions are coming into the city of Las Vegas. And yet, in Las Vegas, all over the city, you see young children, young kids looking like they're 12, 13, 14 years old, teenagers, old people sleeping under bridges, sleeping in bags with and with cups, sitting on the streets asking for alms. I think to myself, one of the wealthiest cities in the whole country, and people are starving here, and the officials of the state, they don't care. Let them starve. As a matter of fact, pick them all up and take them out the garbage and get them out of here because it's bad for business. But I'm saying all over this town, all over Las Vegas, is problems with alcoholism and drug addiction, criminality, but especially the poor, sleeping on the bridges, sleeping on the streets in bags. And it's just amazing to me that this mentality of people who are in power couldn't care less about the human family.
What will it take for people? I mean, we see in England at the moment, David has written for a number of years about the Hunger Games Society, about the deliberate pushing of people into poverty that is so extreme that they just die. What we've seen here in England in the last couple of years is we've seen the government sell off social housing, housing that is really, really important for people who can't afford a mortgage and who can't afford to rent in the private sector. So we've seen this. We've seen at the same time vital money being taken away from people who need it. And we're not talking about lazy people now. We're talking about people with disabilities, people who are sick, and also people, Jordan, who work 50 hours a week but don't earn very much, and they need a bit of a hand to put food on the table. So this government is destroying all that. They're taking away social housing. They're selling off things like the banks, which were briefly nationalised and bailed out, of course, with public money, meaning that they were effectively owned by the people like you and me. Now they're selling them off, right, for pennies on the dollar, for far less than they're worth. So this is beyond evil. This is, other dimensional stuff that's designed to basically kill people and get rid of us. What will it take, Mr. Maxwell, for people to say, Jesus Christ, this isn't about corruption, it's about something far deeper and darker than that? When will people get off their arses? Today, Jordan, the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up and get out of your way then. Today, a police investigation into VIP paedophiles called Operation Midland, which was launched 3 or 4 years ago. 2 million quid has been spent on it to look into powerful men and women abusing children. The inquiry, Jordan, was closed today with no arrests. Nobody did anything. Nobody did anything. When are people going to realise what's going on?
Well, what about John Kennedy? Some 50 some odd years ago, murdered the American president in the front of the whole world on television, blew his head off, and killed him in public. Nobody, and I do mean no one, ever went to jail for that. No one ever went to prison. No one was ever fined. No one ever went to jail for that murdering of the president in front of the whole world. So what does that tell you? So, there was a time years ago when if criminality, big criminality happened, you go to the government and report it. There are laws even in the states today that if you are aware of a criminal conspiracy or any criminality, especially federal crimes being committed, you are responsible to contact the local authorities and make them aware of criminal activity. And so, that way the public and the citizens support their government. But what are you going to do if it's the government that's committing the crime? It's certainly not going to go to them to tell them, because hell, they know what they're doing. And now they know that so now you're going to be in trouble.
They lock you up. That's it. Whistleblowers get locked up. We've spoken to CIA whistleblowers on this program. They went to jail. We had John Kiriakou on the program last week. John told the truth about the CIA torturing detainees. We'll show you, son, into prison for 2 years.
That's it.
Madness, isn't it?
That's what I'm talking about, and that's why I'm frightened to death, because I've got a price on my head too, and I know it. And I know, between you and I and the world listening, I'm just kind of looking forward to quietly leaving the world, because I know too much and I've seen too much, and I know I can't seem to keep my mouth shut. I know what's going on. I've been in the position to be there and watch what people are doing. I could tell you stories that you would not believe that I was even there.
I'd believe it, all right. You've never told me anything that I didn't find out to be true later on. I'd believe it. I do believe, though, and I said this to you before, we had an interview, you and I, on the radio in Spain a few years ago, when you were fairly down on yourself. I mean, you were down now. You were fed up, and I remember saying afterwards, he's fed up. But I tell you something, and I don't know anything. That's why I do this program, to learn things and to find out things. And I mean that. I don't know anything. I do know this, though. You're going to see the change. I believe that change is imminent. I really do, because you said to me a few years ago, and David said it to me at the same time, as they think they're getting closer to fulfilling their agenda, it's becoming more apparent to people, isn't it? Even people who want to bury their head in the sand, and they're going too far, Jordan. Raping and murdering children, and then burying the inquiries, locking people up, starving people. Something else you said to me years ago. You said that you were open to the idea that when their evil agenda starts to affect middle-income people, we don't like to say middle class, but when it starts to affect those who ordinarily, are accustomed to having things, or at least they think they have things, they have a reasonably comfortable life. But once because the poor have always been screwed. So the poor don't rise up, God love them, because they've never had anything. And they're used to getting stepped on and stamped on, like you said earlier. But middle-income people are not. And you said to me years ago, and David has said it as well, and others, when they start really hammering those that are used to standing up for themselves a little bit, and that becomes apparent, then we will start to see a bit of a movement against them. What do you think?
Well, that's why I'm totally sure that's true. That there's going to come a time when people have had enough, and they have a little money, and they have a little education, and they know what's going on, and they realize if they continue to let it go on, it's going to be totally out of control. However, I am of the opinion that who was it? Famous author many years ago. It was the guy who wrote The Prince. What was his name?
The Prince, as in the Prince, Prince.
Yeah, Prince, the Prince.
I don't know. Our listeners are going to have to help us out there. I don't know now, to be honest. Go ahead.
No, it's a very famous name. It just slips my mind. But he wrote that when fascism begins to show its head, as this is written, I don't know.
Machiavelli,
yes.
I should have known that. I'm embarrassed.
Exactly.
An English student like me. That's right, Machiavelli, yeah.
Machiavelli said, when fascism and international crime and governmental crime begins to seep into the government, if there are enough people in the government who are good and statesmen, not just politicians, but good people who know what's going on, and they do something about it. They stand up and they arrest these people, put them in prison, and do whatever is necessary to protect the people from these predators, then there is a chance that the government can be saved. But then he went on to say, but if this fascist criminality begins to grow and nothing is done about it, it becomes a cancer. It becomes a cancer that grows, and once it gets to a certain stage, there will be no stopping it. It's too big. It's too far gone. And now the empire will collapse. The Roman Empire, the Grecian Empire, the Egyptian. It doesn't matter how big it is. If the cancer has taken over the entire body of the country, and the people have become frightened to death of their country because of the violence, the criminality, then there is no hope, period. It's over. So I'm hearing that people are waking up. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Lots of people talking about the stuff I was talking about 60 years ago, but I don't know if we are able to actually extricate ourselves from this situation. I don't think the human race has what it takes, the knowledge, wisdom, intellectual understanding, or the care to do anything. As long as they're being fed, as long as they're getting their beer and their food, and they have entertainment, the bread and circuses in Rome, as long as the people are filled, they have their bellies full, and they don't have to worry about sleeping on the bridge, everything's fine. And so that's why I said to you years ago, but if one day the people who are at least living happily, halfway decent in your society begins to start falling down into the lower ranks and becoming poor and starving and see the corruption, then there's going to be trouble. Now you're going to have something called civil unrest. And you're going to have riots and food riots. And my God, we've seen that kind of stuff in Greece, where you have huge riots of people. And even in the UK and all around the world, you're seeing it. In Egypt, people are tired of being treated like animals. And they don't know what to do about it because they don't understand it. So
and
that's
they've
what
become,
I've been trying to do.
Yeah, and they've become disconnected from speaking to one another and
that's right,
working with one another. Yeah. What about financial crashes? For example, we talked about middle income people and middle class people. Is one of the ways the system? Do you think that the system is going to continue to use big financial crashes to really put the squeeze on the middle classes? And do you think major financial crashes that will destroy fiat currency, money completely, are on the way, Jordan, if they get their way?
My gut feeling about this, and I've been looking at it for a long time and talking to a lot of people about it over the years, but my feeling about this is if you're playing a game like Monopoly, and if I own the game, I'm the one that came up with the idea, I sold it, and now I own the company that produces the Monopoly game. And if I'm actually the owner of the game, and so I'm printing up the money so you can play the game. If I decide to, I can print up more money. Why? Because I'm the one that owns it.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want to do because I own the game. And so, and if everybody's broke, I can give a lot of people money to keep playing the game. I can do whatever I please because the bottom line is I own the game. Now, if that be the case, the guys at the top of the international commercial stock markets of the world, the people in the top of the line, people who are controlling banks and money, that handful of people, whoever they are, and you won't ever know who they are, but the guys at the top can decide whatever they want. And it doesn't matter how much money they print up. It doesn't matter how much inflation it could cause. They can keep the system going as long as they please to. This system can go on for another 100 years or 200 years if the big bosses at the very top make that decision. Just keep everything going the way it is, and make sure there's plenty of alcohol for all the people, make sure they got plenty to drink and alcohol and drugs and television and entertainment, and just keep the banking system just the way it is. Don't worry about it. I'm of the opinion that that's exactly what the situation is. We may not ever see a financial collapse until the guys at the very top uh, want it to happen for their particular political reason, because they control the printing of the money, they control the value of the money, they control, period. So if they control, they can keep it going as long as they want, unless somebody really powerful steps in and tells all the guys at the top, no, I want this thing going under, and here's why. So I don't know. I'm just of the opinion that if the guys at the top want this to go on, it could go on for another 100 years.
Except they do want to get rid of so many of us. They want to reduce the population. But you're quite right. They don't have to crash the financial system to do that. But,
no.
But cashless society is something, obviously, that is on the agenda, because we're easier to control, aren't we, if it's much easier for them to cut off our line of credit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is big, isn't it? Yeah.
That's precisely right. If they can convert the whole system, I don't care how corrupt it is, but the whole system over to digital, into computer, then they've got you. Now they've got you big time, because when there was cash, you could do business, nobody even knows it. That's between you and the guy you're doing business with. Nobody knows it. Nobody can control it. But if they can get a completely cashless society, we're through, because then they've got you.
And it's on the agenda, and we see it all over the world now. Places that won't take cash, they'll only take cards. Apparently, David has been looking a lot into Sweden, and Sweden is virtually on the verge of becoming a completely cashless society, the country of Sweden. This is extraordinary that people in Sweden can't see how devastating this is for their sovereignty as people, for their independence as people. That when we see it here in Manchester now, it's following the London transport mode, where they're going to try and make all public transport, Jordan, cash free. That you must buy a prepaid card, and eventually that will become a prepaid card where you must have biometric data on there. All your information. And people can't see it. People think, oh, that's convenient. That's nice and handy. Because
it is, especially nice and handy if they put you in jail. All they got to do is type in your name in a computer and say shut down, and hit
and
the
you're
button,
gone.
cancel, and your card is now canceled. Period. You got nothing. Zero. You can't buy anything. You can't sell anything. You can't do nothing. Why? Because the bank has just taken your card. They've taken your number, and you're out of business, period. There is no cash. So, I see it coming. I know what's happening, and I know who's doing it. But I'm telling you, I have been working on a subject, and I know we only have a few minutes left. I've been working on a subject that I discovered back in 1967. 67. I don't know how many years that is. It's almost 50, I would think. But
it is next year, 50 years next year, yeah.
Yeah, it's real close. I found something back in 1967 that absolutely startled me. I did not know at the time what it was all about, but my gut feeling was, and I remember it well, it was in Los Angeles, in the city of Glendale, in northern Los Angeles, and I was in a library, and I happened to, by chance, stumble upon an article in an encyclopedia that startled me, because I had been listening and reading and studying Nazism, fascism, communism, all of the different religious political movements of the world for many years. But when I read this article, it startled me, because I knew I had discovered a secret that nobody has seen yet. It's like a pattern recognition. A decoding, a symbol, and I knew I knew with an immediacy that I had stumbled upon something of extreme importance to the world of mankind. It was that important, I knew, but I don't know what it means. I just know this is important. And so I began continually researching that symbol and the words around it and what it meant, where it came from. And it goes all the way back to Proto-Egyptian. It was it was already in existence before Egypt. It was in existence everywhere in Egypt and in Greece, in the Phoenicia, Cana, Babylonia, Sumeria, the Greeks, the Romans, Europe, America. It's everywhere. But it is so well hidden that for thousands of years, nobody suspected what it meant. And when I found out what it meant, quite by chance, I was absolutely shocked. And so I've spent almost 50 years researching that subject. And I am telling you that if this subject ever gets out into the hands of the people of the world, it's going to cause social unrest big time. It's going to cause big trouble if this subject ever gets out into the public, where the public can, for the first time, see the connections with thousands of years ago, the plans being laid out to rape the human race, to totally subjugate human beings, and how it's going to be put together, what the words are going to mean, what the symbols are going to be, and how it's going to be laid out. I've been looking at this for many years, and I'm working on one right now. It's probably going to take at least 2.5 to 3 hours on a video to go back to day one and show the people how absolutely frightening this thing really is. And I've discovered some incredible material about this symbol, about the way it is used around the world. And so I'm trying to do the best I can, but I don't have the facilities. I don't have the knowledge at 75 years old. I don't know the technology on how to put it together.
Yeah, but there are people listening to this program based in your neck of the woods who do have the equipment and do have the wherewithal. And they can contact you by going to jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's Jordan's website. There are email contact details on there, jordanmaxwellshow.com, or contact us at richie@richieallen.co.uk if you have the means to help Jordan with making a 3-hour presentation, audio-visual presentation, which would be fascinating. These are issues that, even though you won't have the visuals on radio, you will be able to explore with us on the program.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good because I'm just telling you, I already know what I have. I just haven't been able to do anything with it because I don't have the funding to pay people to do anything. I don't know how to do it myself because I'm not an expert on computers. But all I do know is that what I've got is explosive. It is absolutely astounding. Even to me, I've been looking at it for 50 years and I still can't believe how openly and in your face this subject is that nobody sees. Well, it's just amazing to me.
Because people can't see the woods for the trees so many times.
That's exactly right.
Isn't it? It's staring them right in the face. For today, we're just about out of time, by the way. Again, big thanks to freestylehomes.com and Andy and the gang there for sponsoring Jordan to do this. Again, it must be said, sponsorship was never an issue. I've been speaking to Jordan for years. It came out of the blue. Andy offered it back in the late summer, and it's great. And it's not a lot, but it might go towards Jordan's legal bills. Mate, to say that we love you is an understatement. We absolutely love having you on this programme. You're hugely important. You've got a lot to say. Your voice is hugely important, and we're thrilled. I'm personally thrilled that we can do this once a month or once every 5 or 6 weeks. And just thanks for doing it. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate your concern and interest in my work. Because I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm very tired at 75 years old. I'm very tired of trying to have people hear me because I've been talking for many, many years. But happily, I know that I've been able to enlighten some people who want to know. But if I had the wherewithal, I could do so much more. And I'm really concerned about that because I'm not getting any younger, and I don't ask for much of anything. That's why I don't have much of anything. But I do feel that the information I have, it's taken my whole life to get it. I know how important it is, and I'd like to be able to do something with it before I leave this world, because I'm telling you, it's really important when you finally see it. But 99% of what I'm talking about and doing is visual. You have to see it. Me just telling you doesn't do it. You've got to see it for yourself. And once you do, then you'll understand how big and how terrible the subject really is. So again, without people like you, I wouldn't even have an opportunity to tell the world. So I want to thank you again.
No, you don't have to thank me, Jordan. It's an honour. I've never, all the times we've spoken on radio and television, I've never had a bad experience. It's always been incredibly enlightening and fascinating, and I'm thrilled to be associated with you. And I really mean that. And the audience loves you. We're lucky we have a big platform. We have a lot of people listening. Boys,